This is Talk is Sheep, a podcast by the Wild Sheep Society of British Columbia. Come along as we take conversations that matter to you into the high alpine.
Steven.
I don't know how you change it up all the time. It just
I know. I just gotta. Yeah, I'm no Ranella. I'm no. What's that guy? Josh Rogan. Is that his name?
Yeah, that's the guy. Yeah, something like that. No, that's Seth Rogen.
Seth Rogen.
That's the guy.
Anyway, just kidding. We love you, Joe. Anyway, cool. So it's episode 91. We've been working for a while to try and get Jason Matzinger on the show. He's a busy guy. He's lots on the go. He just talks about where hunt he got back from, and really cool to connect. I don't know Jason well. I met him once, and I wasn't sure, even what we talk about. We're quite familiar with his platform and stuff, and it would just, that hour just flies by instantly. He's got so many great stories and so many great experiences, and I knew there'd be some really good content. I just didn't know it'd be that good.
Oh yeah, we've been trying to line this up for almost a year now, but just schedules didn't work, and yeah, here we are, finally meshed, and as you said, the hour flew by. Just genuine. You could just see the passion when he got off talking about some things that you'll hear about that meant the world to him, and I wish you could see the fire in his eyes, and all, like when he's replaying things in his mind, you could just see it on his face that there's a true love for what he does. It was great.
Well, it's interesting what we do, right? We're a conservation organization. We talk sheep, right? And this is the wheelhouse of what we do. And really, at the end of the day, we're conservationists. We're sheep hunters. But at the end of the day, we're putting sheep on the mountain. That's what we want to do. And he's got that common goal. He's a conservationist at heart. I think he identifies. He used the word conservationist a lot more than he did hunting on this podcast, which was pretty cool.
Yeah, definitely noticed that. If you haven't had a chance to watch any of his shows, do it, and you'll see why and how he tells his story versus what a hunt is versus the emotion behind it. Right, a lot of content out there is about the kill. Jason gives his perspective on why that's not the most important piece of his storytelling, and yeah, just can't get over it. It was such a good episode. Really enjoyed chatting.
Well, the funny thing is a lot of what we're talking about, I kept thinking one campfire. And he's not really familiar with the brand. I don't think we never discussed it, but the whole time I'm like, this is just one campfire stuff. This is one campfire.
Yeah, absolutely. Stuff, right? That was a one campfire conversation without even mentioning the words one campfire at all.
Yeah. So very cool. Great listen. I'm sure you're all going to enjoy it, but, on a housekeeping note, I'm actually leaving on a sheep hunt in 5 days. Just saying.
Yeah, I'm going to lock the door.
Just saying.
You guys are going to sleep on the lawn. Yeah, by the time this releases, you'll be will you be flying back on the 14th?
No, I'm still going to be in there. So this drops the 14th, and I think I don't fly out till the 18th. So
how'd you do, or do we know yet? You got to inreach me.
Exactly.
Inreach me. And I'll know, and I can update the show.
No, I'm not in-reaching you because you'll be putting lats and longs on the freaking podcast notes.
Oh, absolutely. That's what I'll be. And everybody be going, why the hell is he hunting sheep in Vegas? That looks like the Strip. What the hell? That's not...
Yeah, no, that's not going to happen. But so I'm away for a couple of weeks. We recorded a couple of these in advance so that we can keep the weekly output going. And merch. You going to talk a little bit about that?
Yep. By the time this drops, we should have some new hats in stock. We ran some of the leather patch hats, trucker style hats that were really, really popular last year. And a couple of the colors sold out within 2 weeks. And we've re-upped on that. We've also added some new colors and a new color for the ladies. So there's a very limited run on the color for the ladies. So have a look on our website in the sheep shop and grab yourself some stuff there. We've got some discounts on some of our older merchandise before we swap over the logo. We got some pretty kick-ass water bottles, and Kyle's got one up the mountain with him right now. I guarantee it. And they're pretty cool. Let us know what you think of the new colors, and email us if you you want to see something in the shop that currently isn't there. We're constantly working on bringing in some new stuff and rotating out some of the older stuff. So yeah, we want to do this for you. So let us know what you want to see.
Awesome, man. Very cool. With that, we are going to hear from a great conservationist, Jason Matzinger. He's the host of Into High Country and just a great podcast on conservation and hunting. And we talk a little bit about sheep too. So enjoy episode 91.
Across Canada and throughout the world, if you come across a campfire in the woods, on a mountaintop, or next to a river, you'll find warm company and friendly people gathered around. Regardless of your lifestyle or place you call home, we invite you to learn more about what it means to be a hunter in the modern era. If you love the outdoors, care about where your food comes from, and are concerned for the future of wildlife and the environments that they need to survive, pull up a seat. We have a story to tell. Welcome to our campfire.
Well, good afternoon, Jason. Welcome to Talk of Sheep. We appreciate you connecting with us and coming on the show today.
Yeah, for sure. Glad we could finally connect. We've kind of been back and forth, but been something I've been wanting to do. So happy to be here.
Well, it's awesome, man, and just love the work that you're doing in our community, the conservation world and the wild sheep community in particular. It's really, really exciting. Last time I seen you was we're getting on the bus at Sheep Week there, and we were at the Reno Sparks, and you had your Yeti pack on, and so my wife was eyeing your Yeti pack up. I'm like, hey, Jason, where did you get that pack? So we got her a new pack anyway. So.
Good deal.
Yeah. Awesome, man.
How quickly Sheep Week kind of rolls around, which isn't a bad thing, but it just kind of the pace of life, pretty crazy. So we'll be here before we know it again.
Yeah, the rhythm cycle. And if you think about it, we're 4.5 months out. That's freaking scary when you think 4.5 months till Sheep Week.
Yeah, no kidding.
It's awesome, but it's scary.
No doubt. A lot to do between now and then.
Yeah, well, especially for a guy like yourself that's so busy in the field. Thank you for making it on the show here, because I know you're really literally rolling into your busy time of year right now. So, before we kind of hit on all that stuff, let's back the train up and just kind of, can you set the groundwork for us? We watch your stuff, we hear all about you, but can you talk about your formative years? What got you into the conservation community, the hunting community, and then the film stuff? Let's go down that side. So maybe take us back to those early days for us.
Yeah, I think it was easy for me to kind of fall into the realm of hunting, just being born and raised here in Bozeman, Montana. Hunting and ranching, agriculture was a big part of the community here, and my dad and his friends, it was something they loved to do, from spring bear hunting to pursuing elk, deer, and antelope in the fall. And so naturally, as a young boy, I tagged along and kind of fell in love with the process of being out there and trying to find these animals, and just how much fun we would have while we were out there. And then as I got older, Dad would start dragging me to some of these conservation banquets, I think the very first one I ever went to was a Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation banquet that was actually their national one down in Salt Lake City, Utah. So we took a road trip down there, and I just remember it being a real cool atmosphere. I've always loved wildlife art and taxidermy and just everything around it. So for me, it was like, just so interesting, everything from the hunting aspect to the taxidermy to the artwork and everything. And so I just started going to more and more of those conservation shows with him, and really kind of just fell in love, like I said, with the people and the missions and the stories. And I started to really understand that tie between what we were doing in the field and how important that work was that was being done, with those organizations. And so it was a natural progression for me to want to tie that into my storytelling. As I started to evolve in the television space, and, more opportunities opened up to tell stories in a long form, like documentary films or short films. It wasn't just kind of that hunting television format. And so I gravitated towards that, and just love to work with, started to partner with conservation organizations to try to help tell their story and their mission and why it's so important they do what they do, and why people who, love those animals or anything to do with the places they live, why they should be involved. And it's been about 13 years or 14 years now of doing it, and I haven't looked back. I love what I do. And, right up until now, I was telling you guys I'm working on a documentary with the Wild Sheep Foundation titled Selective, which is to try to help give the general people a better understanding why trophy hunting is so important and why it's such a beautiful thing, and why it should still be completely embraced and celebrated, even today, what it's done for hunted and non-hunted species, and just trying to tell those hard to tell stories and why they're important. And so that's kind of the fast forward, clumped together version of everything. But feel very fortunate to have a lot of good partners that help me be able to get out there and try to tell those stories too.
Well, that's awesome. You do such a fantastic job. And I want to talk about, those stories specifically, actually, and talk about Selective. I'm really familiar with Circle of Life. It's such a great film that you did there. And so I want to dive into all that. But before we get there, let's back it up again just to, for you. And, I can see behind you, there's one of the pictures in there. There's a bunch of you around an animal that you guys have harvested.
Oh, yeah.
Obviously that's part of your family and your heritage of where you come from. What was your first hunt where you actually harvested an animal? Were you with your dad, or what was that like for you, that first animal that you took?
For me personally, the first animal that I ever took was an antelope doe. Actually, it was the very first thing. It was, I think it was the perfect hunt as a young hunter in Montana. At the time, we had more, antelope than we had ever had in this state. And so if you kind of blew one herd, there would be another one. And so it was a good first hunt to go on. And then from there, I think the second animal I shot was an antelope buck, and then a mule deer. And took me quite a few years to get an elk. But yeah, I kind of started with antelope, and, looking back, it was sort of the perfect animal. I mean, there was so many of them at the time that, you could screw up and just be right back on them. And it's open enough country that you can stand on about any knob at any given time and see animals out on the landscape. And so it was easy to keep a young kid entertained, I guess.
Well, that's the thing too, right? I've taken my kids out hunting, and you don't see anything, and for a new young kid, it's pretty demoralizing. It's like, they're already, just trying to get them engaged and get excited. But to go like antelope, when you're going out and you're seeing 50 or 100 at a time and say 500 a day, it's eye opening, right? It's pretty cool.
Yeah, sure.
That's a hunt I've never had a chance to do yet, antelope. Being living in BC, right? It's just not something I have experienced. I've seen them when we drove to Drumheller a couple of weeks ago. Oh, holy crap. About a month and a half ago now, there was a few antelope on the side in Alberta, but never had a chance to hunt them. It's always been a bucket list for me.
Do you guys have tags in Alberta, like southern part, or no?
Yeah. So in BC, there's no species to hunt antelope, but in Alberta, they do have a season. And
Alberta, yeah.
You can. Yeah, Alberta's got, and I'm actually going to go I have a tag for October. I've got a hunt booked, so pretty excited. It'll be funny. I grew up in Alberta, Jason, and they were there for years, and then I hunted them archery wise, but and actually they're pretty easy to hunt archery wise, as you know. Probably to kill a big one, it's tough, but they're pretty curious animals. They're kind of like caribou. You can kind of almost flag them in with a white flag or whatever. But I've never had the opportunity to get one, but I've got a tag for this fall, so I'm pretty stoked about that for sure. So and that's in Alberta.
Kind of interesting. When I was in sheep camp up in the Northwest Territories, I ended up sharing camp with Tom Hoffman, who is, renowned sheep hunter, kind of bow hunter figure, and great guy. Got to, have quite a few conversations with him. And he told me, well, he was the first guy to kill the North American 29 that all animals made it into Pope and Young. And he told me, interestingly enough, the last one that he had to do was a pronghorn antelope, which I thought was kind of funny. You would have thought it would have been a sheep or a brown bear or something like that, but it was an antelope. So anyhow.
Yeah.
Fact.
Well, in terms of, and Tom, that's phenomenal with him. But, it's interesting. They're such a unique species, like there's probably no prettier trophy than an antelope, right? They're just absolutely stunning. So.
You bet.
Very cool. I'm pretty excited about it. That one you got behind you, did you get that with your bow? Is that an archery one, or what's the
That's
story
a
on
rifle
that one?
That's actually. I got that one with my dad. He's just really unique because he bends forward, instead of kind of the traditional in or even back. And so we chased him for quite a while and then finally got him. So it was a pretty neat hunt. I was like 14 when I got that one. So.
Right on. What about the one over your right shoulder? That's a hammer buck as well.
That's actually probably the biggest antelope I've ever shot with a bow. And that was on a Wyoming archery draw tag. Well, it was either weapon, but I shot it with a bow. And he was a big dude. Shot him right at daylight the first morning. Just got lucky. Decoyed him right in. I saw him chasing another buck off, and he left his does 300 yards away, just chasing this other buck as fast as he could go. And so I had my decoy ready. And so while he was paying attention to that buck, I just ran out and slipped right between him and his does and set that decoy up. And when he got done chasing that buck, he turned around and looked and saw my decoy sitting there, and he was just on top of me in no time. So it's pretty cool.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's so cool. They're such a cool animal to hunt. Hey, that's very cool. And then you see so many too. It's such a rewarding hunt in that regard as well. So,
yeah.
Cool. Oh, okay. So let's talk a little bit about film. So where does that fit in? So we know you grew up with the hunting aspect. Where did that come from? Where's the genesis of you and picking up the camera and doing the great work that you do?
Well, I appreciate the kind words there. Thank you. It all started, I was, well, first of all, my dad and his friends, before I was old enough to hunt, my dad had an old video camera. And so I would try to film, what I could when I was too young to hunt, following them along. But even to back it up a little before that, my dad and his best friend had an 8mm camera with rolls of film that were 2 minutes long. And I can remember they had a few hunts on there that I can remember watching when I was little. There was no sound, and we'd have to hook it up to a projector that, we'd have to take a picture off the wall or do something to project it on there. And I remember watching caribou hunts, and I remember some of his trips into Yellowstone with sheep and bison and stuff like that, just filming them. And so I feel like my dad and his friends, kind of teed it up. They always sort of dabbled in it. And I tried doing it before I was old enough to hunt. But then as I got older, and hunting television became a thing, not just, VHS tapes that you could rent at the local video store or whatever. It was actually on TV. I just started to feel like, even though those shows were good at the time, they didn't really kind of portray my way of hunting or how me and my family or friends felt like when we were out there, or our story, the big story. And so I just started filming as much as I could with no real direction of, how I was going to make it work. I just started kind of filming my friends and myself out there as much as I could, and got this archive going. And like I said, TV was getting bigger and bigger. And being here in Bozeman, I was kind of fortunate because there's so many outdoor companies based right here in Bozeman. And so I was able to sort of get relationships going with some of those companies on a very grassroots ground level, like Schnee's Boots and Shoes are based right here in Bozeman, or like Montana Canvas Wall Tents, or Mystery Ranch Packs, or and so I was able to sort of talk to these companies and sort of get the ball rolling, and I started doing DVDs, and then Schnee's was really the first one that sort of saw what I had and got behind it and said, yeah, we should make a TV show. And so I worked with them to get the show off the ground the first few years, and it just snowballed from there. But, I'd say it really just started from knowing what I was seeing out there on a day-to-day basis. I was guiding at the time, doing a lot of guiding, and just never seeing that come up on TV and feeling like, man, I want to capture what I see out here and tell my story, because I'm just not seeing it with what I'm seeing on TV.
Yeah, right on. So, maybe there's a bunch I'd love to dive in there, but this is very topical now. You talk about that aspect of it. We've seen this, evolution, 20 years ago, you $60 in 60 minutes, and just a lot of stuff that made us as hunters. It didn't do us any favors. Anyone that wasn't a hunter that turned it on TV and watched some of these shows back in the day. I think it's gotten better. I don't watch a lot of mainstream TV, to be honest with you, so I'm not the best person. But can you talk a little bit about that? Have you seen an evolution in TV? Have you seen more Jason type stories being told, and more about, the documentary style, and about, why we hunt? And it's not about the kill. It's not about, massive bucks hitting the ground every 3 seconds. Have you seen an evolution in a change in the way? And you've been part of that, changing that lead. So talk a little bit about that first, how you see it being in the industry.
I do see, this is our 13th season of being on now. And I definitely have seen a change in a couple things. I've seen a change in the way that hunting is being presented. There's a much better story being told behind this content. When it comes to hunting television and short films and things like that, short films are a great way to tell a real, great story of meaning to something beyond just the hunt or the kill itself. And so I've definitely seen this trend go from, like you say, how many kills or kill shots can we stack up in a 22-minute episode, to, how cinematic can we capture the shots? How creative can we be? What's the big story? Why is it important to anybody watching? There's more of these questions being asked from producers, and a lot of my friends work really hard to try to make these stories. And beyond that, conservation I've seen come a long ways. Like when I first started trying to tell these conservation stories, there was really nobody out there talking about conservation or putting out, films about conservation, or just trying to tell the stories of what these organizations were doing. It was just a couple of people. And that's one thing I'd say I'm really proud to see beyond just the messaging changing, is how many more people are talking about conservation and wanting to dive in and, ask the right questions. How can I help? How can I get involved? And then once they do, trying to relay that through their platforms. And so I've seen this huge shift of, how many kills can we stack up, to why are hunters relevant to the general public, and how can we be better, and what's our next mission? Is it open public lands? Is it, helping the caribou up north? Is it, the pneumonia in sheep? And we're constantly changing our focus as a group to try to help. And I didn't see that when I first came on. And so I definitely have seen a shift. And I think it's all, I shouldn't say all for the better, but I think for the most part, it's for the better. Now, where I see us, sort of maybe losing ground is the advent of social media and YouTube and all these unregulated platforms where anybody has the opportunity to go out and really put something out there that maybe shouldn't be seen by people outside of hunting, something we understand and we get, but not everything needs to be put out there. And so, within the regulated platforms, I've really seen this elevated sort of mission. I feel like sometimes we kind of take a hit on the back end with some of the stuff that happens on social media, but I think the companies and the groups and the major players are really pushing that conservation message, and it's great to see.
Yeah, those are the ones that unfortunately always go viral, right? It's never the great storytelling where somebody talks about the start to finish of the hunt and why they're doing it and what it means to them on a personal, spiritual level. It's always the ones that do something boneheaded that end up getting dragged into the media, and then we're on our heels again fighting to show that it's not always the case, right? And that's why I appreciate storytelling like yours, as Kyle said. Those are the ones that really grab a hold of the ones that matter.
Oh, I appreciate that. And I think that's exactly why what drives me to want to put out a story like Selective is because, kind of as I look at the industry or films or productions, like we've dabbled in trophy hunting and we've dabbled why it's important or why it started or when it started and that kind of thing. But it seems like anytime we bring it up, it's sort of in defense of an attack from something that happened. And I just never feel like we've ever collectively really come out with this one powerful piece that really says, okay, time out. Here's what trophy hunting is. Here's why it started. Here's what it's done for wildlife since the beginning and what it continues to do for hunted and non-hunted species, and why, it's still important that it's implemented today. And, accepting the fact that, trophy maybe wasn't the best word to describe it. And that's why selective has become a word that we're trying to sort of interject more and more, because it is that one word, that is a better descriptor of what we're actually doing than trophy hunting. And so, I think it's really important to tell that trophy hunting story because it is so misunderstood. And most of the time we tend to shy away from it because it is touchy and it really opens a can of worms. But I like those subjects, like airing them out and talking to a lot of different people. And, so I hope this film is something that we can all be, as hunters and conservationists proud of, to use as an example of, why it was started and why it's important today. And through this film, hopefully bring to light a lot of why these other steps in the process are so important too.
Yeah, awesome. I can't wait to see it. I think it's going to be fantastic, Jason. So let's dive into that a little bit. Like, one of the things that I see in our community that, we've come a long ways. We've done a good job, but around even this selective trophy hunting issue, we still get people internally, like our own people, that don't understand it. They don't support it. And interesting enough, there's one of our public figures in our space was on Rogan, trashing trophy hunting. And so how do we better articulate, or what can we do a little differently to, get everyone speaking on the same terms? And we've seen it, like you said, on this unregulated social media. It's like, I can post whatever I want on the internet, people will say, right? It's like, yeah, but there's these consequences, and people go, I don't care. I'm proud to be a hunter. And the disservice and the challenges that we face trying to sort of, counter that stuff. So, what can we do, just when you share your message to the greater hunting, and let's just talk internally, to get everyone on the same page, to think like kind of we do when it comes to getting a better message out to the general public? How do we do a better job of that?
Well, I think just education is key, sort of trying to bring points to light that maybe they haven't thought of, or why it's important to not do certain things or why it's important to do certain things. And, I think we get defensive, over the things that we're super passionate about. And so I think, I, like anybody, am super proud of who I am and what I do. But I also realize that the future of hunting really comes down to the masses of people and the people that are outside of hunting and their perception of hunting. Each and every one of us, whether you're an influencer or have a TV show or a podcast or whatever, are important to the future of hunting because our numbers are so small, and the perception of what you put out is really important to the future. Like, their vote is what counts for keeping us, being able to do what we do. And so I think just having some of those hard conversations, and I think just leading by example and just, not getting discouraged because, some of the hardest, I never would have dreamed when I started doing this that it was actually hunters that I would have the hardest conversations with over support of what I do. I really thought that it was going to be these anti-hunting communities and individuals that were just going to bombard me. And yeah, you get that from time to time. But the constant, that gets frustrating at times is the conversations with hunters and sort of the infighting. And that's a great question. I'm sitting here trying to think, like, what do we do to get everybody on the same page? And that's the golden question, like what we're all trying to do. And I think overall, social media has been around long enough that anybody that's paid attention to it over the last 10 years should be able to see the negative consequences that can come from, not being responsible with the things you say or the things you post, and I think we all went through this learning curve of, figuring out what social media was and what sort of power it really had. I know I went through it, and really had to sort of reel some things back. In the beginning, it was just this fantastic thing to share everything. And then it, you started to realize the powers it could have. And so I think that, I'd like to think that the worst of the damage has been done, that, and that the greater population of hunters has sort of learned through trial and error, I guess, what to do and what not to do. And so I hope that through time and through, unfortunately, bad, things getting shut down or whatever it may be, we get better as a group. But time will tell, I guess. The infighting does definitely get frustrating. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you expect it from the anti-hunters, but internally you think, there'd be just broad-based support, everybody be pulling the same weight. And yeah, we've all seen that that's not always the case. So, yeah.
Yeah.
So can we flip back? So you talked about, you've seen this evolution from, over the past 13 years, from, the stories that used to be told to the stories that are being told now. Lots of focus on the conservation and stuff. What do you think we can attribute that to? Is it attributing to realizing that, we weren't doing the best job of telling our story? Or is it because of people like yourselves that are doing a better job of telling the story? Or is it because of conservation organizations like MDF or RMEF or WSF or NWTF? Is that the source of it? Or is it kind of all those things? What do you think is causing this shift in what we're seeing, even in the content that we're seeing, and kind of the general consensus around our hunting image?
Well, I think it kind of came out of necessity. I think I started doing a lot of this work with the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation. The Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation, and they've been around for a lot of years. And so they've been sort of leading the charge on a lot of fronts in a number of different ways. And I think that, there comes a time with any organization where you build, you get your foundation, your support, and then you have to start, not only recruiting more people to get into the fold, younger people to get into the fold, that kind of thing, but also reassuring your core group of what you're doing, and I think there comes a time with these organizations where their members want to know what they're doing with the money, with these funds, with all this stuff that they're working, and people are donating their 40, 50, 100, whatever it is a year. I think it's important, it became important for them to say, okay, we need to start showing people what we're doing and why it's important as an organization. So as these organizations started to get older, started investing in bigger projects, had bigger stories to tell. When I first started doing stuff with the Elk Foundation, that's a lot of what it was, hey, we just bought this section of land, which opened up and enhanced 1 million acres for hunters, recreationists, hikers, and naturalists to go enjoy. So we would go film the trailhead, and we would go film the property, and we would, show those steps. And so it was really important, in the process for these organizations to continue their mission and show their members what was happening. And so I think that, it started from the organizations needing to tell their story and wanting to tell their story and needing to evolve. It wasn't just print ads. It wasn't just TV. Now, there was podcasts, and now there was social media, and there was short films, and there was all these things. And so I think it was just timing of everything. And, hunters being under attack more than ever, and us needing to go like, okay, hang on. Why are we important? What can I tell this guy that's sitting next to me at the bar that's just chewing me out because he found out I'm a hunter? What can I tell him about why it's important I continue to be a hunter other than it just looks pretty on my wall? And so I think as we got challenged as hunters, it became important for us to understand why it was important we do what we do. And as a group, as a whole, we wanted to learn more, and we wanted to spread that message. And I think that that's what helped me, and what I did so early on, as I was one of the first people to put this into this package that could be shared on social media. Facebook, Instagram really wasn't even a thing at the time. It was more just Facebook, and hunters latched onto it. They were like, yes, I need to share this because this is why I do what I do. I've never really been able to describe it, but here it is. And so the support for that blew up. And I think other people wanting to do similar things to what I do saw the support in that and continued to keep that snowball rolling. And so I think it was a number of things working together at the point in time that it was needed.
Awesome. So, Jason, you've done a ton of work over the years. You've worked with a number of organizations. The foundations, one of them, Wild Sheep Foundation. I love Circle of Life, but you've told a number of stories. Hunting is conservation. This is hunting. Is there one that resonates with you that really, told a story that meant the most to you? Is there one that stands out, or one that really you feel is the most impactful of all the work you've done over the years? Tough question, I think, on the spot. So.
It is kind of a tough question. Yeah, they all kind of have their special place in my heart. And they're all kind of part of this series. Like I kind of title it my conservation series. Like Project Elk, the mission was to teach people how hunting is conservation, just the big picture. Project Mule Deer was to teach people why land conservation and management and habitat enhancement and restoration was so important. and keeping migratory corridors connected for these animals to be able to freely travel back and forth. That was kind of the mission of that one. Circle of Life was kind of like, why are big money auction tags and organizations like the Wild Sheep Foundation so important to the future of an animal like the wild sheep? Why is a guy buying a tag for $500,000 to hunt one animal a beautiful thing? That was kind of the story behind that. Project Landlocked was the story behind the available public land in the United States that we can't access. And as we look to the future, we're not slowing down the rate in which humanity is expanding and the human population is exploding. And so what are the answers? What are solutions to everybody having a quality of life and everybody having this opportunity to go hunting and fishing and enjoy what we have? The future of the public lands was the topic of that one. And now selective is going to be this trophy hunting story, and why from the beginning this trophy collection, the national collection of heads and horns, sparked conservation in North America, like a collection of taxidermy in the Bronx Zoo in downtown New York City. And so, man, I know that's a super long-winded answer, but they all just, I've put my heart in everything I have into every one of those pieces. And so to pick out one is tough. Project Elk probably sticks out the most just because, man, I was cutting my teeth on that one. Like I was unproven. I had all this footage from all these different cameras. I had all these shots that I had gotten from, all over, of just the best elk shots I had. And I was trying to make this documentary, and I wanted to do something different and next level. And so I busted my ass on that film. And when it came out, I remember bawling when I watched the first cut of it, because I had a team of people involved, from sound people to writers to, camera guys to, assistant editors, and this whole team. And when they showed me the final cut for the first time, I remember flat out, it hit a point in the film that it was just like, I couldn't hold it back. The sense of pride I had for what we had accomplished was so overwhelming. And so, I'd have to say probably Project Elk, just because of the struggle to kind of get that first one going,
Awesome. So you've told these fantastic stories, and you're working every day and creating content. Is there a story that you really want to tell? Is there something, obviously you're a visionary. You've got these ideas and concepts and stories that you want to tell. That's what you do for a living. But is there an untold story out there that's kind of that you can share with us? I don't want to steal your content here, but I'm just curious if you've got something on the horizon.
Someday, like somebody I really look up to is David Attenborough. I don't know if you guys watch his Planet Earth specials and Life on This Planet and different things, but I seek a lot of information. He's literally dedicated his life to just making the world a better place for people, for wildlife, for habitat, and just so smart. And I love his delivery and everything. But anyway, he's getting to the point where he just put out a film called A Life on This Planet. It's his last one, and it's literally like everything he's learned from being to Africa, to Australia, to the US, to just these world travels and living with the villagers and all this, and like putting it all together and what that means globally. And so I think, without getting into too much detail, I would just like to someday put together a film that encompasses all of this, and how all of these films I've been working on can go together in one giant picture that's this, shows scenes in Africa and shows scenes in Antarctica and shows scenes, but like the hunter impact globally. And so it's, there's still a lot to do, but I'd say if there's one that, I'm kind of reaching for the stars on, it would be something like that.
Oh, that's awesome. That's very cool. It'd be be a fantastic project to see. So the bulk of your stuff has been North America, I guess. Do you have visions of doing some of that stuff outside of the bounds of North America, or is that on the horizon, or what does that look like for you?
I mean, I don't have any set goal to start reaching across the seas to other continents and trying to dive into being an expert in what it takes for them to be better conservationists. I think we've got so many challenges right here on our own home soil that we need focused attention on, that I think it would be hard for me to ever feel confident enough to step outside of what I know and feel like I'm a voice of any sort. So although I'd like to say someday, I'd like to learn more and expand my horizons, right now, I don't have that vision because I just don't have that expertise. I don't feel like I should be the guy to talk about issues globally right now. I'm starting to get a little further north, like a little further north up towards you guys, a little further south, but I'm still right in that little parallel right there.
Well, and truth be told, there's enough stories to be told at home right now too, right? You don't even need to venture very far just to tell the stories that we have locally here, certainly. And you're in that hot spot of Bozeman for the conservation mecca of the world. It's such a great spot to be for the work that you do, right?
It is, yeah. The wild sheep folks are just down the street. I get to see them and work with them on a regular basis, so it's pretty awesome having them right here. And in fact, Sitka's having a pre-season kickoff party tonight at their store, which is like a block or two down from my office. So from 5 to 7, I'll be there having some beer and telling some stories, and guys from OnX will be there doing some stuff. So yeah, I definitely live in the mecca of it here for sure.
That's awesome. Yeah, very cool. I love that part of the world. Okay. Are you able to talk a little bit about Selective and a little bit about your hunt, or is that, I know the film's not out yet and I don't want to ruin anything, but I'd love to hear anything you can tell us about it.
Yeah. So, I mean, this concept actually came up in 2018. I was supposed to do this hunt in the NWT in 2020. And, as you know, the border and the complications there, it's gotten pushed back to where it was actually this year I was finally able to go do the hunt portion. So this film originally was supposed to launch in the summer of, I guess it would be the summer of 21. So I had collected a lot of content already on the back end as far as trophies, trophy hunting, interviews, scoring. We went and I was invited to go sit in with the panel scorers down in Springfield, Missouri for this last 7-year stint of the Boone and Crockett book. So all the latest records from the last 7 years were down there, and they had the panel scorers in there. And since the club's inception, they've never let anybody who wasn't a panel scorer in the room when they're actually scoring these record animals. They have 4 panel scorers in there, 2 groups of 2. And but they wanted to sort of shed some light on what it is they do, kind of like we talked about. Boone and Crockett and Pope and Young both are at this place of trying to remind hunters and non-hunters why it's so important that they are an organization and a club, and why they were founded and why it's still important today. And so like this trophy thing is important for them. And anyway, we were able to sit in and film them scoring. It's the new number 4 bighorn in the world, which was actually a pickup off of Wild Horse Island. And I think it was like 206 or 208 or something like that, just a giant. But we got to sit in with the panel score in that ram. And so, we've got all these cool scenes of the ram being uncrated to being scored to put up in the museum in this beautiful display, and them, discussing the score and all of this, everything. And then the national collection I talked about, we went and filmed that whole original collection, which there's a huge story behind that, which we'll tell in the film. But basically, it was Teddy Roosevelt's idea for him and his buddies to go out and kill as many animals across the world as they could and get them mounted and make this national collection of heads and horns. And they put it right outside the Bronx Zoo, and it was a scare tactic. He put a sign above it that said, "In memory of the vanishing big game of the world." And so when people went to the zoo to check out these animals, they were sort of force-fed this taxidermy collection of these animals that were vanishing, and it sparked people to want to help. And so we tell that whole story, and this is besides the hunt. Like, we've been building just a ton of cool background of why trophy and selective harvest is so important, and these data points that is the record book, what that means to hunting and conservation in the future, and the proof of what we're doing and why it shows it's working. And so, it's been quite a road of building up to just now wanting to get the hunt and do the hunt so we could continue the film. And excuse me. And the hunt was just incredible. I mean, I remember talking to Gray Thornton and Keith Balford from Wild Sheep before I left, and both of them said, like, you'll come back a changed man from that hunt. It'll do something to you, and they weren't wrong. I mean, that experience up there in the Northwest Territories and the country, and just the style of hunting and being submersed in it was, more than I have time to talk about, but they weren't wrong. It definitely, makes me crave that type of big adventure more. And, I went into it with total blinders on of bow or nothing. I wanted to kill the ram with a bow or nothing. And I thought, like, the more I struggled, the better it would be for this trophy hunting story we were trying to tell. I wanted to show people who didn't understand trophy hunting that not all of it's easy. Like, some of it's very, very hard, And so I thought, okay, if I go bow hunt Dall sheep, what a great hunt to sort of show this quintessential trophy hunt. And, hunted with Dustin Rowe up there, and I mean, we had a heck of a hunt. I ended up passing up a 6 or 7 year old ram at like 3 yards in his bed. Full curled, totally legal ram, but, just young. And, but that to me was just like, putting a notch in the saddle or something. Like, at that point, I felt like the scratch was really itched for wanting to bow hunt Dall sheep. Like, it was just incredible. And we got some cool film of that whole kind of encounter, and had some other close ones. And as the hunt went on, I started to realize that as much as I thought, like, oh, if I don't kill one, I can come back someday. You start to realize it's not that easy when you're up there. I mean, the hunt itself is way hard. I knew it was going to be hard, but it was even harder than I thought, But beyond that, you start to realize the logistics it takes to get you into that place in the world, and the amount of time that it takes out of your summer. I didn't have a chance to do a lot with my boys this summer. And so I don't know that while they're still young, I want to take that time out of my summer again to, go on a sheep hunt. Maybe when I get older, but then, tomorrow's never promised. And so you're up on the mountain and your mind is just going. And so the second to last day of the hunt, we knew he was at least a 12-year-old ram, wide open stuff. Like, we just felt like very low odds for a bow stock. And Dustin had been packing the rifle. And so we made the decision to take him, snuck up on him in his bed and kind of let him stand, and, was able to make a good shot. And it was just, it was 10 after 10 on the 9th out of 10th day. So we basically had time to go up there, just soak in the moment, get some video, get some photos. We cut out a backstrap, cut some little fillets out of that, and cooked his backstrap on a piece of slate there with the jet boil. Had some fresh steaks. We had taken a little Ziploc full of seasoning to sprinkle on there, and it was like the first fresh protein we had had in a while, so it just tasted amazing, and the ram laying right there, and we were beat. So we decided to pitch the tents, get a couple hours sleep, and get up and finish working on the ram the next morning. So we got a few hours sleep, got up, finished working on the ram, had some coffee, and then were able to haul him up to where we could get picked up by the helicopter and headed back to main camp, and had about enough time for a shower and throwing some salt on the hide and, and getting some dinner and heading out the next day. So, it was just awesome to feel like, really made the most of every moment out there and soak up that experience. Now I just crave it.
So you going back this year? Or what? I guess you got a full slate ahead of you as it is probably. So what's the plan for your next?
No plan set to go back. I know Dustin is, we've been talking about maybe trying to get something for stone sheep lined up years down the road, but nothing for certain right now. So we'll see.
I was just going to say that you got to come to BC and kill a stone sheep, and Dustin's your guy. He'll get you set up. He's got his concession up here, and that'd be a great hunt and great story for sure. So,
yeah, no,
cool. Doubt. Not much beats fresh dull sheep meat on the mountain like that, though, eh? And on a piece of rock, and just
stop
amazing.
Rubbing it in.
Oh, it was incredible. And then I hauled home 2 full hindquarters. I left it on the bone so we could do the flip-flop cooking here. So I came home, and like 2 days later, it was the Total Archery Challenge up in Big Sky Resort. And so Yeti was kind of hosting a barbecue there. So I took one of my Dahl hinds there, and they had a guy doing the flip-flop. The flip-flop guy there, cooking it up, and it was incredible. So I was able to even come home and share some of it, as fresh as it could be back to Montana. So that was really awesome, and just part of, why I love to do what we do, that sense of pride, when somebody comes up and is like, that is the most amazing piece of meat I've ever had in my life. Thank you so much for sharing that. You don't get that when you feed them some ribs from Costco or something. As good as they are, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
Nobody ever comes up and compliments you on how amazing it is. So it's just all part of the process,
Yeah, very cool. Well, I have to say that's a luxury to have that, to show up at Big Sky and get a piece of dull sheep meat. That's incredible. That doesn't happen every day.
Yeah.
Probably won't ever happen again.
It was a proud hunter moment for sure.
Yeah, very cool. When does the film drop? When's selective? Are we going to see it for Sheep Week, or what's the plan?
So you'll see the trailer for Sheep Week.
Okay.
We're going to present it either Friday or Saturday night, show like about a 5-minute trailer and talk about the project and, why it was, I guess, the Wild Sheep thought it was important to get behind it. And then the film will actually drop next summer, actually at Big Sky here in Montana. We're doing like a under the stars blow up screen with a big set of speakers, and kind of do like a fundraiser for Wild Sheep. Yeti's going to get us some cups, and we'll have some beer and some barbecue going, and get some raffles. And so if you guys are available towards the end of next July, you should try to make it down. It's going to be a good time.
Road trip.
Epic.
Let's go.
Yeah. I like it.
Yeah.
I could be convinced of that. It's awesome for sure. So let's talk about with the show, like Into High Country, is that stuff that's coming out? Does this season come out with this year's content, or how does that work with your your business rhythm when it comes to the show and stuff like that. So talk about what you're doing this year and when we're going to see it. I guess that's the big thing that I'm curious about.
Yeah, so for network TV, there's usually a delay with my fall hunts. So I'm kicking out shows right now on Sportsman's Channel that we actually filmed last fall. With the exception of, I usually incorporate my spring hunts. So spring bear, or like I'm cutting a show from Texas. I went and bow hunted aoudad down in South Texas last year. West Texas. And so my spring hunts will get into the same year that I hunted them, but fall hunts, there's usually a kind of a delay there. So just getting ready to head out for elk here in a couple of days. And yeah, that show will probably likely first be seen like July 1 of 2023. So quite a delay there, but when you kind of have been doing it long enough, it's like there's this constant sort of content wheel anyway, you know. So long as there's more coming, there's always something to kick out.
Absolutely. So when you look back over your career, you like, I guess we won't limit it to, TV per se. Is there a favorite hunt? And then what's the bucket list hunt? Is it the stone sheep? So what are those two things? What's on the horizon for you? And then what stands out as your most, I don't think so much the show, but more so the most memorable hunt that you recall?
Hunts, as you guys I'm sure can attest, all have different things that make them memorable. Like it's hard to forget my boy's first deer or my first deer or my dad's biggest bull where he had just got heart surgery right before that. Like there's those hunts that really stick out to me, but, I'd have to say favorite hunt, like it's tough to top that Dall sheep hunt. Like that redefined adventure for me and, sort of what I was capable of, like Montana's some big country, but nothing like the Northwest Territories. And it made me realize I could look at Montana on a much grander scale and I could be doing a lot more back home and physically, felt great on that hunt. And we were hunting in more rugged stuff with more weight than, for 9 days I can remember packing for a long time. And so,
yeah. What kind of weight were you carrying? Like, what would your pack be on a typical trip?
I would say
what were you guys
50
pushing?
to 60 pounds is what we were doing on a day-to-day basis. And we never had like a camp we were going back to. We were moving every day and trying to find the rams and that kind of thing. And, it just made me excited to kind of take some of that sort of technique and apply it into some of my hunting back here. And, but yeah, that Dall sheep hunt, I mean, it really just, it's hard to put into words, but the people I was with, the people I met, the place, the stuff I got to see, just kind of mentally and physically, how it sort of elevated me in just a lot of levels. I don't know if it's just because that one's super fresh and it was a tough hunt or if it'll stick with me like that. But right now that one's going to be tough to top. And, as far as bucket list, yeah, I mean, I want to definitely continue to hunt sheep. I love just being in that country, or whether it's bighorns or Dalls. I've never experienced deserts or stones, and then like, I'd like to do brown bear. I'd like to do grizzly. I'd like to kill a big Alaskan moose sometime. I've done Shiras and I've done Canadian. I'm actually coming to hunt in Alberta for Canadian moose October 3rd through the 12th this year. So I'm pretty jacked about that. But
cool. Where's that, Jason? Do you know who that is with? Do you recall?
So I got a good friend that's an outfitter up there. His name's Colin Paley. He owns Northern Edge Outfitting. He's out of Thorhild.
Yeah.
So we're kind of hunting. where he hunts is basically sort of right about where farmland kind of trickles into bush country. And so you can kind of catch them in farmland, but also, there's some thicker bush country in there. So excited. That was sort of a cancellation hunt and last minute deal that I couldn't say no to. But I find myself gravitating towards wanting to come up in your guys' neck of the woods to hunt. That's where my bucket list critters are versus like overseas or even Mexico or, some of that. I find myself really looking north most of the time when I find myself daydreaming of, bucket list stuff.
Yeah, very cool. Well, we'd love to have you up here for sure. So, before we wrap up, people want to see your content. Kind of give us an overview of best place to go, where we can catch all your shows, all your stuff. What's the best platforms for that?
So, up there, I am on Sportsman's Channel Canada. I'm not sure all the different air times, but we're on, 4 times a week. Into High Country is the name of the show. And from there, once they air in Canada, then they go on my YouTube channel. So just Jason Matzinger on YouTube. I have most of my past episodes, but My Outdoor TV is a streaming network through Sportsman and Outdoor Channel. I have all my past seasons and episodes on there. So yeah, those would probably be the main places to find them. And then to kind of follow along day to day, like my social media handle is Jason Matzinger Official, whether it's Facebook or Instagram, you can follow me on there. And I try to do a pretty good job of keeping people in the know, but those are the main spots. And then Sportsman's Channel here in the States, we come on every Monday night at 7:30. So.
Right on. That's very cool. We appreciate you taking the time today, and just we're grateful for all the work you do. And I'm really stoked to watch Selective. That's going to be a fantastic film. Maybe if you're up for it, we'll try and grab you down at Sheep Week and maybe grab a podcast down there and maybe talk about the film a little bit more. I don't know, maybe might be premature, but at least catch up on your season. If it's always tough to carve that time out, but it'd be great to touch base again.
Yeah, for sure. I'd love to if time allows. Always good catching up.
Well, we thank you for your time, Jason. We appreciate all you're doing for our wild sheep world and the conservation community, and Wild Sheep BC, Wild Sheep Foundation, Steve and I. That's what makes us tick, and it's you're leading that charge and telling our story, and we're sure grateful for all you do. Thank you.
Well, I sure appreciate that. I turn it right back around on you guys. I mean, it takes a team of people, and the work that you guys do. Wild Sheep, with Wild Sheep BC and with the podcast and getting these messages out there. I mean, it takes us all working together. So thank you for everything you guys do as well.
Awesome. We'll have a great hunt this fall, and look forward to catching up on it and seeing how it goes for you. I'm sure you'll have a ton of more stories to share with us.
I sure hope so. Thank you.